Officer Brandon Walsh thought he was dealing with just another nobody until Judge Vanessa Carter calmly showed him a badge that turned his world upside down in front of an entire city. Vanessa Carter never liked being late. That morning she threw on a simple gray blazer over a black blouse, tossed her judicial robe in the back seat, and grabbed a quick coffee from a corner store in Macon, Georgia. She liked blending in when she wasn't behind the bench. No flashy car, no driver, no security trailing her like some judges insisted on. Just her and her beat-up 2010 Honda Accord cruising the streets toward the courthouse. She was halfway down Magnolia Avenue when she noticed a police cruiser tailing two cars behind. She didn't think much of it, signaled her turn, checked her mirrors, old habits, but the cruiser's lights flashed anyway. Vanessa pulled over smoothly, parking near a gas station, hands firmly on the wheel at 10 and 2. Through the rear view, she caught a glimpse of the officer, young, white, stocky, striding toward her car like he was already mad. She sighed softly. The door yanked open before she could lower her window. "You in a hurry or something?" Officer Brandon Walsh barked, glaring. Vanessa kept her voice even. "Good morning, officer. May I ask why I've been stopped?" "License and registration," he snapped, ignoring her question, his hand hovering too close to his belt. Vanessa reached for her purse, slowly narrating each move. "I'm reaching into my bag, officer." Something about her calm seemed to rile him more. "Don't move so slow. You think you're funny?" he said, leaning closer, his breath reeking of stale coffee and impatience. Vanessa swallowed her irritation. "I'm cooperating, sir. Here's my—" Before she could finish, Walsh jerked the door wider. Vanessa flinched, instinctively gripping the seat. "Get out of the car," he growled. She didn't argue, unbuckling her seatbelt, stepping out in slow, deliberate motions. The moment her feet hit the pavement, a slap cracked across her cheek. Sharp, humiliating, louder than the traffic around them. Gasps erupted from nearby pedestrians, people pumping gas, grabbing breakfast at the station store. Vanessa's head snapped to the side, her blazer slipping off one shoulder. She tasted blood. For a second, the world froze. Walsh stood there, chest heaving, looking more satisfied than shocked. Vanessa straightened, blinking the sting from her eyes, resisting the urge to touch her face. "You just assaulted a sitting judge," she said quietly. Not a threat, a statement, like saying the sun would rise tomorrow. Walsh scoffed, stepping back. "Yeah, right." A woman nearby dropped her coffee. A man pumping gas muttered under his breath. Phones came out, shaky fingers hitting record. Vanessa slowly reached into her blazer's inner pocket, pulling out a gold badge that gleamed under the Georgia sun, the seal of the Georgia Supreme Court. Color drained from Walsh's face faster than a sink unplugged. Vanessa said nothing. She didn't need to. The energy around them shifted. Angry murmurs grew louder. "You messed up!" someone shouted from the crowd. But Vanessa's eyes stayed locked on Walsh, calm and unyielding, though her cheek throbbed and her heart pounded against her ribs. She wasn't just defending herself. She was standing for everyone who never had a badge to shield them. The tension was only starting to build, and the next few minutes would blow the scene wide open in ways no one there could have imagined. Walsh's hand twitched near his holster. For one sickening moment, Vanessa thought he might try to arrest her anyway, maybe even draw on her. But something about the crowd pressing closer, phones raised like shields, made him hesitate. "Put that down," Walsh barked at a teen recording across the street. His voice cracked. The kid didn't budge. Neither did anyone else. Vanessa held her ground, voice low but carrying like thunder. "You assaulted me in front of witnesses. You'll answer for it." Walsh opened his mouth, then closed it, chest heaving like he was running out of air. He took a shaky step back. An older man in overalls, hands stained with motor oil, shouted, "You better call your boss, boy. You done screwed up bad." Vanessa watched Walsh's fingers tremble slightly. She almost pitied him. He fumbled for his radio, calling for immediate backup, barking into the mic, "Possible disturbance at the Shell station, corner of Magnolia and Pine." He didn't mention he was the cause. Vanessa crossed her arms casually, badge still in hand. Her cheek pulsed, a deep, hot pain spreading along her jaw. But she kept her voice steady. "You know who I am," she said. "You know what comes next." Walsh shook his head faintly, like he could physically shake off reality. "Didn't know," he mumbled. "You don't look like a judge." The words hung heavy, ugly, raw. Vanessa didn't flinch. She didn't need to. The crowd heard it too, and their outrage began to boil. A woman with a baby on her hip stepped closer. "What's a judge supposed to look like, huh?" she snapped. Walsh ignored her, pacing a tight circle, face blotchy and red. He didn't apologize, didn't offer help, just looked trapped. The first patrol car screeched up seconds later, 2 officers jumping out, one black, one white, hands hovering at their hips, eyes widening at the scene. Vanessa spoke first, not shouting, not pleading, but commanding, like a judge. "Officer Brandon Walsh assaulted me during a traffic stop. You're now witnesses to that fact. My name is Judge Vanessa Carter, Georgia Supreme Court." The black officer blinked twice, processing. His partner, a woman visibly tensed, staring at Walsh, like he was radioactive. "You serious?" she asked, squinting. Vanessa just raised her badge higher, letting the sun catch it. Another car pulled up, then another, sirens wailing in the distance. Urgent, not the lazy kind for minor calls. The gas station manager ran out, yelling, "I got cameras. It's all on tape." Walsh's shoulders slumped, like the whole city had crashed down on him. Vanessa watched, waiting to see if he'd own it, apologize, try to fix even a sliver of what he'd broken. He didn't. Instead, he turned away, muttering curses under his breath like a kid caught lying. The other officers moved in, separating him from Vanessa, boxing him in. The crowd tried to make sense of a situation already spiraling beyond their control. Someone on the radio shouted, "Lieutenant Brooks en route, 3 minutes." Vanessa caught the sidelong glances from the responding officers, half sympathy, half fear. They knew this wouldn't stay local, not with half the city holding phones, not with security footage from 3 angles. The female officer, name tag reading Jenkins, approached cautiously. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" Vanessa nodded once. "He struck my face." Jenkins looked like she wanted to melt into the asphalt. "Medics are on the way. We'll handle this." Vanessa held her gaze. "I'm staying until Lieutenant Brooks arrives." Her tone left no room for debate, and so they waited. But when Lieutenant Brooks arrived minutes later, the storm that hit Macon, Georgia, made everything prior seem small. A black SUV with government plates roared into the lot, scattering pigeons into the air. Doors flew open before the tires stopped rolling, and Lieutenant Marcus Brooks stepped out, face set like stone. Brooks was a big man, not sloppy. Square jaw, salt and pepper hair, cropped tight, dark sunglasses he ripped off the second he saw the scene. He spotted Vanessa first, his whole body tensing. He pushed through the ring of officers like a man on a mission. "Judge Carter," he said, voice low and clipped. "Are you okay, ma'am?" Vanessa didn't nod, didn't smile, just tilted her head slightly, letting him see the raw red handprint swelling on her cheek. The silence that followed was suffocating. Brooks's jaw twitched once, then he turned to Brandon Walsh, who stood awkwardly by his cruiser, avoiding eye contact. "What the hell happened here?" Brooks asked, voice controlled but dangerous. Walsh opened his mouth, but Vanessa cut in. This officer stopped me without cause, demanded I exit my vehicle without explaining why, then struck me in the face, all before checking my identity or credentials. A phone chirped nearby, probably a text or recording alert. Bystanders didn't move, not missing a second of it. Brooks turned fully to Walsh now. "You hit her?" he asked, voice low like thunder before a storm. Walsh swallowed. I didn't know who she was." Brooks took one slow step closer. "You thought that made it okay?" Walsh opened his mouth again, floundering, but nothing coherent came out. Vanessa's voice sliced through. "My identity doesn't justify what you did. It just makes it impossible for you to pretend it didn't happen." The crowd murmured. Officer Jenkins looked like she might be sick. Brooks scanned the faces, the phones, the security cameras glinting on the station's canopy. He closed the gap to Walsh in 2 strides. "Turn in your weapon and badge, now." It was the first crack in Walsh's armor. He blinked, stunned. "Lieutenant, you can't be serious." Brooks didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You assaulted a Supreme Court judge, Brandon. You're lucky this isn't ending in cuffs right now." Reluctantly, Walsh unclipped his badge, then slowly handed over his holstered weapon, hands shaking. Vanessa watched, not with vengeance, not with triumph, but with a disappointment that cut deeper than anger ever could. Officer Jenkins stepped up quietly, taking Walsh's arm, guiding him to a second cruiser with an open door. Walsh didn't resist, didn't look back. Once he was out of earshot, Brooks turned to Vanessa again. "Ma'am, we have medics inbound. I'm deeply sorry this happened. This will be handled properly." Vanessa nodded, her voice catching slightly on the last word, but she masked it quickly. The mechanic with oil-stained hands stepped forward, wiping his palms on his jeans. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I got the whole thing on video, just so you know." Vanessa turned to him, seeing him clearly for the first time. 50s, sun-weathered face, kind eyes. "Thank you," she said. "That means people will see it for themselves," he added quietly. "Ain't nobody twisting this one." Vanessa gave a faint smile. "You're right." Medics rolled in moments later, cutting through the crowd. One, a young black woman with tight curls under a cap, glanced at Vanessa's face and shook her head slightly. Vanessa let her examine the swelling, not because she needed treatment, but because she knew the importance of documenting everything. As the medics worked, a low hum of conversation filled the air. News vans arrived, local reporters with microphones pushing forward. Vanessa realized, with a strange numbness, that her bruised, unyielding face was about to be everywhere, and the conversation about what happened wasn't going to be quiet. But the firestorm brewing wouldn't just change Officer Walsh's life. It would pull Vanessa into a far bigger fight than she'd ever asked for. By the time Vanessa finished giving her official statement at the precinct, her phone was lit up with missed calls, texts from colleagues, journalists, even old college friends she hadn't spoken to in years. The video had spread fast. Someone leaked it to a local news outlet within an hour. From there, it exploded. Vanessa sat stiffly in a windowless interview room at the Macon Police Department, sipping stale water from a paper cup while Lieutenant Brooks made endless calls just outside. Through the thin walls, she could hear the chaos, phones ringing nonstop, officers whispering, the occasional raised voice. Her cheek had darkened into a vicious bruise, sharp pain flaring each time she moved her jaw. The door creaked, and Brooks stepped in, face grim. "They're calling it a gross miscarriage of justice," he said, almost apologetic. "The state AG's demanding a full investigation. FBI's been notified." Vanessa set her cup down carefully. "It needs to be investigated." Brooks nodded darkly. "The mayor wants to meet you personally. So does the city council." She exhaled slowly. "I'm not interested in shaking hands and smiling for cameras." He rubbed the back of his neck, looking uneasy. "They're scared, ma'am. Terrified, honestly. This isn't going away." Vanessa already knew that. She could feel the weight of it, like a heavy coat she hadn't asked to wear. "I'm not here to make them comfortable," she said quietly. Brooks didn't argue. A young officer knocked and poked his head in. "Lieutenant, you need to see this." Brooks frowned and stepped out. Vanessa followed into the main hall, where TVs blared above the reception desk. There was her face, close up, the swelling stark under harsh lighting. A banner screamed, "Georgia Supreme Court Judge assaulted by Macon officer." The reporter's voice cut through static. Civil rights organizations are already demanding criminal charges against Officer Brandon Walsh, who was suspended without pay earlier today. Vanessa caught a glimpse of Walsh being led from the precinct in cuffs, looking smaller, hunched, surrounded by a wall of grim-faced deputies. It didn't feel like victory. It didn't feel like anything. A woman from Internal Affairs, thin and sharp with cropped blonde hair, introduced herself to Vanessa and handed over a copy of her preliminary report. It said what she expected: excessive force, failure to verify identity, disregard for proper procedure, violation of civil rights. "This'll move fast," the woman said. "Too much attention now." Vanessa didn't bother smiling. Attention fades. Justice shouldn't. The woman gave a rare, grim nod of agreement. As Vanessa headed to the parking lot later that evening, flanked by two plainclothes officers, she paused on the steps. Across the street, a crowd had gathered. Not protesters yet, but concerned citizens holding candles, some with handwritten signs. "We stand with Judge Carter." A teenage girl broke from the group, darting across the street, stopping a few feet away. "I just wanted to say," the girl said, voice trembling, "you're really brave." Vanessa's throat tightened unexpectedly. She smiled gently. "Thank you. So are you." The girl's face lit up, and she dashed back to her friends. Vanessa lingered a moment, taking in the scene. She hadn't asked for any of this fame, sympathy. She just wanted to get to court on time and do her job. But sometimes life hands you a fight you didn't choose, and you either step up or let it pass. Vanessa Carter was never the type to stand quietly aside. But the pressure was about to climb higher as she braced for the tidal wave of public reaction, support, criticism, and everything in between. By the next morning, Vanessa's name was everywhere. Cable news anchors dissected the incident like a heavyweight bout. Talk radio was flooded with calls, some outraged, others disturbingly defending Walsh's actions. Vanessa sat at her kitchen table in her modest brick home on Macon's East Side, a mug of black coffee cooling beside her laptop. The footage had played so many times she could practically hear the slap before it landed. Emails poured in by the hundreds, law students, civil rights advocates, fellow judges, even a retired truck driver from Idaho who wrote, "You're tougher than I'll ever be. Keep standing." Vanessa closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of each message. She hadn't meant to become a symbol, but there was no escaping it now. Her phone buzzed again. It was an old law school colleague, Malik Turner, now a professor at a small college in Virginia. His voice cracked with emotion the second she answered. "Vanessa, I saw the footage. I'm sick over it." She pressed the phone to her ear. "I'm okay, Malik?" "No, you're not," he said softly. "None of us are. This shouldn't have happened. Not to you, not to anyone." Vanessa didn't argue. What could she say? That she somehow expected it? That being a black woman, even with robes, honors, and years of service, never felt like enough protection beyond those marble walls. Instead, she asked, "How are the students taking it?" Malik hesitated. "They're angry. They want to protest, organize rallies. Some are already writing letters to the state bar." Vanessa smiled faintly. It wasn't fear she felt. It was something sharper, dangerously close to hope. "Tell them to stay peaceful," she said. "Their voices carry further that way." After hanging up, Vanessa turned on the TV again. Outside the courthouse, people were gathering, homemade signs waving, some faces streaked with tears, others filled with quiet, righteous anger. An elderly black woman in a church hat spoke into a microphone, voice trembling. "This is about dignity," she said, "about respect that shouldn't have to be earned with a title or a badge." Vanessa leaned back in her chair, absorbing every word. This wasn't just her story anymore. Across town, rumors swirled that Walsh had hired a high-powered attorney from Atlanta. Some TV pundits were already speculating he'd claim he feared for his life. The same tired excuse Vanessa had seen trotted out in case after case that never got proper justice. But this time, there were too many witnesses, too much undeniable evidence, and maybe, just maybe, the country was tired of excuses. Vanessa pictured the crowd gathering in the sticky Georgia heat, young faces with signs, old veterans leaning on canes, kids on shoulders chanting her name, not because they knew her, but because they knew what she stood for. Not a perfect system, not a fairy tale win, but a stubborn demand that dignity belonged to everyone. The doorbell snapped her out of her thoughts. Two plainclothes detectives stood there, looking serious but respectful. One, a tall black man with a thick Savannah accent, introduced himself as Detective Jerome Hayes. "Ma'am," he said warmly, "we're assigned to assist with security, just for your safety. Things are heating up." Vanessa appreciated the honesty. She nodded. "Thank you." Detective Hayes gave a slight smile. "We've got you, ma'am. Nobody's touching you again." For the first time in 2 days, Vanessa felt her chest loosen slightly. She wasn't alone in this, not by a long shot. But as the wheels of justice spun faster behind the scenes, Vanessa knew true accountability wouldn't come easy or quietly. The courtroom buzzed with an energy Vanessa hadn't felt in years. Not excitement, not fear, but something heavier, a demand for something most folks around Macon weren't used to seeing. Real consequences. Vanessa sat quietly in the front row, flanked by two attorneys from the State Judicial Committee. Today, she wasn't presiding. She was a witness. At the defendant's table, Brandon Walsh looked smaller than ever in a wrinkled suit that hung off him like a costume. His lawyer, a sharp-faced woman from Atlanta named Karen Holt, kept whispering urgently in his ear. The judge, a stern-faced woman from a neighboring county named Ellen Ramsey, called the session to order. Prosecutors laid out the facts. No speculation needed. The video showed it all. Walsh pulling Vanessa from her car, slapping her face, refusing to verify her identity, turning a simple stop into violence. Vanessa took the stand, steps even, courtroom holding its breath, as she placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. When the prosecutor asked her to describe the incident, she didn't embellish or dramatize. She told it straight. I was treated as less than human because of an assumption made the moment he saw me, she said, voice never rising. The badge in my jacket shouldn't be the reason someone regrets mistreating me. My existence should have been enough. Someone in the back wiped their eyes. Vanessa stole a glance at Walsh during her testimony. He wouldn't meet her gaze. When it was the defense's turn, Karen Holt tried hard to spin it, claiming Officer Walsh feared for his safety, thought he was dealing with a potentially dangerous situation. Vanessa's attorney shot up. Objection. Judge Ramsey's gavel cracked down. Stick to the facts, Ms. Holt. The defense faltered. There was nothing to salvage. Too many witnesses, too much video, too much truth. When closing arguments wrapped, the judge didn't waste time. She found Brandon Walsh guilty of assault, abuse of authority, and violating civil rights under color of law. Sentencing would come later, but the verdict was clear. As Vanessa stepped outside into the thick midday heat, cameras flashed, microphones stretched toward her. For a moment, she considered ducking into the waiting car and letting someone else speak for her. But then she thought of the teenage girl with the candle, the mechanic with oil-stained hands, the thousands of strangers writing letters and holding signs. She approached the bank of microphones. "My name is Judge Vanessa Carter," she said clearly. "And what happened to me happens to too many people who don't have a title or badge to protect them." Reporters leaned closer. "I'm grateful for the outpouring of support," she continued, "but gratitude isn't enough. Justice isn't a gift. It's not something you earn by being respectable, educated, or famous. It's a right. And until that right is guaranteed for everyone everywhere, none of us are truly safe." She let the words hang, heavier than the sun beating down on the concrete. No slogans, no theatrics, just truth, plain and direct. Vanessa turned and walked away, not taking questions. Cameras kept rolling, but she didn't look back. That evening, at home, Vanessa sat on her porch, legs tucked under her, watching the stars flicker. Her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from a young woman in Mississippi. "Because of you, I'm applying to law school. Thank you for fighting, even when you didn't have to." Vanessa smiled softly, setting the phone aside. She hadn't chosen this fight, but maybe it had chosen her for a reason. Maybe, in some small way, Standing her ground had sparked something bigger than one trial, one city, one bad cop. Maybe it reminded people that dignity didn't have to be demanded with shouts and fists. Sometimes it could be claimed quietly, firmly, unapologetically. But as Vanessa sat in the warm Georgia night, she knew the real work, the hardest work, was just beginning. Weeks later, Vanessa stood on the steps of the Georgia Supreme Court in Atlanta, her robe flowing softly around her ankles. She'd reluctantly agreed to speak at a small ceremony honoring public servants who showed exceptional courage under pressure. She didn't think she deserved the honor. She'd only done what anyone with a sense of dignity would. Still, as she looked out at the small crowd, students, community leaders, families with kids on their shoulders, she felt something she hadn't let herself feel since that awful morning at the gas station. Hope. Vanessa adjusted the microphone and began. "I've been a judge for many years," she said, voice steady. "And one thing I know for sure is that justice doesn't live in marble buildings or flow automatically from gavels and robes." She paused, letting the silence settle. Justice lives in the small choices we make every day, in the moments we choose dignity over pride, truth over comfort, when we choose to see each other fully, not as stereotypes, not as threats, but as people. A quiet murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. She smiled faintly, not for the cameras, but something real, earned. "I didn't survive that stop because of my title," she said. "I survived because I refused to let someone's ignorance define my worth." A young boy in the front row, maybe 10, leaned forward, hanging on every word. Vanessa's heart lifted slightly at the sight. "I won't pretend the world changed overnight because of what happened to me. It hasn't. Real change moves slowly. It stumbles. It gets pushed back. But it keeps moving forward if we push it." Vanessa caught the eye of an older woman standing to the side, the same woman who'd spoken at the courthouse rally weeks earlier. She gave a slight nod, carrying generations of battles in that gesture. "I'm standing here today not because I'm special," Vanessa said, voice firm. "I'm here because I had a chance to speak, and I chose to take it." She leaned forward, voice softening but losing none of its strength. "And you," she said, scanning the crowd, "have that same choice every day." The boy grinned at her, face alight. Vanessa finished. "Just choose courage. Choose dignity. Choose to stand even when it's easier to sit. Because when you do, you give others permission to stand too." The applause started soft, then grew naturally, unprompted. Vanessa stepped back from the mic and let the crowd have the moment. After the ceremony, people lined up to shake her hand. Some cried, some laughed, some just pressed their palms to their hearts in silent solidarity. Vanessa stayed until the last person left. As the sun dipped low over the Georgia hills, painting the sky in soft golds and reds, she gathered her things and walked slowly to the parking lot. Her Accord waited, still beat up. No security, no fanfare, just her keys and the road ahead. She slid behind the wheel, took a long, grounding breath, and smiled to herself. Not because the fight was over, but because she knew she was exactly where she needed to be. And this time, she wasn't driving alone. Not really. Across the state, the country, people had heard her story, and maybe, just maybe, they'd carry a little more awareness, a little more resolve into their own lives. Vanessa Carter didn't need monuments or headlines. She needed change, stubborn, everyday change, and she was ready to keep fighting for it, however long it took. If you believe in standing for dignity, respect, and truth, even when it's hard, don't stay silent. Be someone's reason to hope. Share this story, and let's keep pushing forward together.